the show, everyone. I am so glad you joined us for the very first, the premiere of Reinvented Life and Business Solutions. So, this show was created to merge life and business as they happen at the same time. So, oftentimes, life and business can be all over the place, it can be traumatic, it can also have so many ebbs and flows. So, today we have an exciting show for you. So we are joined by Dr. Kaye Hayes. Dr. Hayes is a transpersonal psychologist. The practice of transpersonal psychology is an integrative and holistic discipline that seeks to transform individuals. She is a creative at Starlight Gaze, and her mission there is to capture, in two words, the crossword companion. As a crossword companion, her mission and passion is to help individuals light their path. She holds a BA in Environmental Studies and Growth Management from Rollins College, an MA in Transpersonal Psychology with a specialization in transformational coaching from the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, now Sophia University. Dr. Hayes, we are so happy that you are here to join us today. And I just want to say thank you for your time. And so we're getting ready to learn so many gems from Dr. Hayes. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here for your premiere. It's
Thank
an
you.
honor to be here for your premiere.
Thank you. So, I wanted you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and exactly what you do to help transform lives.
Well, like you said, my area of expertise is in transpersonal psychology, and that's really working with individuals beyond the person themselves or the ego, and really connecting in a psychospiritual kind of way. So we holistically look at the person's overall well-being. Um, let's see, I am the Crossroad Companion, trademark pending. Um,
Very good.
I I help individuals light their way through dark times of transition, what they perceive as dark times of transition. I personally believe, based on experience, that what we consider uncomfortable and bad can be transmuted because they're really just opportunities for growth. And so part of my work is helping individuals see that where they are, their growing pangs are just that. They're opportunities for expansion and opportunities to take us to a place that we don't realize we want to go. Because usually these types of transitions, they start to percolate in the subconscious level. And it's because we are subconsciously having this longing for something, but we don't realize it because it's subconscious. And so the longer it kind of sits, and that need for transition to take us to that place that we're not sure where we want to go yet, other symptoms or effects start to manifest until we get to a point where you can't take it anymore and you're like, something has to happen. And so that's kind of where I come in. And so I'm not, I don't consider myself a guide or a coach really, because I feel like in those positions, that's implying that I know something about where you're supposed to go, and I don't. Um, our paths are specifically ours, and so I can't say that I know what's ahead, but I can walk alongside you and I can hold the light for you, and we can get through the wilderness, or we could get to the other end together and help you have a more clarity, insight as to where you need to go next.
Wow. So, did you set out in your career earlier in your career when you started your journey in education? Did you have this in mind, or did this kind of evolve based on life experiences, or based on what you saw a need was out there?
I was not supposed to do this as far as I was concerned. This was not on my radar. When I went to college, I went to be an environmental engineer.
Mm,
That's where it was supposed to go. I was supposed to get my engineering degree, get a house, meet a boy, get married, have some children, all of that, right? But there was something else that was supposed to happen. And I was basically, I believe God pretty much forced me out of the engineering field. Um, I had gotten to a point where I would get physically ill when I would go to class. And it wasn't until I would walk away from my classroom that I would feel better. And the closer I got to my classroom, the pain and discomfort would come back. So I was like, okay, so this isn't normal. Something is obviously trying to tell me that this is not okay. So that's when I stopped and I said, okay, I surrendered. I said, what am I supposed to do? If it's not engineering, what am I supposed to do? Because I've been groomed to do this since all through high school, you know. Um, and so it was when I surrendered, a complete 180 happened, and I went from going to a very large public university to a little tiny liberal arts school to study environmental studies and growth management. And during that time, I went through some spiritual crises, some dark nights. Um, and so it did evolve. Me trying to work through um, that discomfort and that opportunity for growth is what led me to where I am. Because it was the work that I did um, through my undergraduate um, into my master's and so on, that I was given the support from my cohorts and professors and the coursework that we did that really got me through those dark times. And it really was, and when I look back on it, really building precepts upon precepts to get me to where I am. So it was some suffering. That's usually where our passions come from, right? From those pain points that we've been able to navigate and overcome so that we can appreciate someone else going through it. And because we were able to get through it, we can support others through it and give them that hope and light.
Yes. So, can you briefly explain to our viewers, if they're jumping on or watching this on the replay, what is the ego and the subconscious? I've studied the ego and the subconscious for probably a decade now, but not in school, but just on my own. And I think that's so interesting for us to understand, because I want you to explain, are they fighting against each other, or is the subconscious telling you the things that you need to know about yourself, about your journey, and how do you recognize that?
So I personally believe um, we have spirit, and we have,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Spirit is, is our spirit. That's our oneness. That's our connection to that higher source, whatever you call it, God, whatever your name for it is. And that's where our perfection is. We are perfect in spirit. The ego on this physical form, this physical level that we're on, um, that is the voice that tells us, that keeps us separate from our source, that that fights that battle to make sure that we don't recognize or give too much weight to our perfectness by telling us that we're stupid, by telling us that we're not worthy, by telling us that we're imposters. That leads us into situations that are abusive or um, that hold us down. So it's almost like one is the man in the red suit and one is the man in the white suit, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's how I see the ego. I see the ego, and people tell us to, make friends with the ego and try to satiate the ego, but it's not possible. It's a
Mhm.
constant battle, right?
Mhm.
You try to
Mhm.
make friends with the ego, but those voices that are defeating, that we're constantly battling, they don't ever go away, which tells me that ego has no intention on you being friends.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Mhm.
that's my perception. And so that's why it's important to go beyond the personal, beyond the person,
Mhm.
because we need to recognize that we're spirit,
Mhm.
that we're encased in a physical form, but that's not who we truly are.
Mm.
And so we have to shift our perspectives so that we can connect to that
Mhm.
and be in a constant conscious awareness of our connection with our source.
Yes. Yes. I
Um,
totally agree.
yeah, so that's kind of my how I see ego.
Mhm.
And as far as the subconscious, I believe, is the place within us. I don't consider it as part of the ego, um, but I think it's that place where we have all of that knowledge and wisdom
Mhm.
that is part of us being spirit.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
where our knowledge is. That's where our wisdom is. That's where our intuition, we get that intuitive sensing and that connection to each other.
Mhm.
It's that collective space of knowledge that we all share, that one mind.
Mhm.
And I think that's why we're able to tune in to when someone's thinking about us and the phone rings, because we're all pulling from that central source that is
Yes.
spirit. So
Yes.
that's how I see it.
That is so so perfect. And how I explain this to people is that the ego to me is always running towards something, some type of fulfillment, and it's never happy. And
Hmm.
it's always trying to feel where God is my center and God is always present. And sometimes you might pray about something or you really want something and then you're saying, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? It's gonna happen. But God is always at your center, leading and guiding for our abundance to come in, for our best lives to come in. But we are so sometimes in tune to the ego, the run. Come on, do this, do this, do this, and then God is just back in the present and saying, you know what? If you would have listened to me that one time, and keep making mistake after mistake after mistake, but you were going to get there, but you have to be totally aligned because we could be somewhere, we could get somewhere, we could get someplace, but it might not even be what God had in mind or our total alignment. Like you say with the
Mm.
subconscious, it might not have been, it would have been a lot better. But the ego is suggesting and anxious and let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. And it's not calm. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's not
Hmm.
like peaceful. I could just say, okay, if this happens, okay, that's fine. If it doesn't, okay. And I'm always in tune because I'm not always calm. I'm always in tune to calm people as yourself, an assurity within yourself, like everything is just going to be fine. And I see that in you a lot. So you are the
Wow, thank you.
perfect person to explain this to everybody. So were you always this calm and this receptive to the subconscious um, on the inside?
I tend to have been um, a pretty even tempered person, an optimistic person, a person that doesn't like conflict.
Yes.
It, definitely a natural mediator, you know. Let's find I will laugh in a situation or I get angry in a situation.
Oh, okay, okay,
I'm that
okay,
person.
okay.
I'm that person. Like I will find the humor because there's just no reason to expend that much energy. Because in the end, at the end of the day, my thing is that on my deathbed, is this moment gonna matter? What is gonna matter to me on my deathbed? If this ain't on the radar, there's no point.
That, yes,
You know,
yes.
there's no point.
That's no point. And then the older you get, you realize because one of my husband's friends just passed away
Mm.
from college, and he got back this weekend. And I was looking at the program, and I was like, nothing really matters. You know, you come here, you die, and then the dash matters. So, are you going to get in an uproar up in the dash? So, like you said, does this really matter? Does this coming this energy, does this really matter to my alignment? And the
Mm-hmm.
older you get, you think about alignment. Like you said, when you were in that program, your spirit wasn't aligned to that, and you began to be physically ill. And I have been in a program about 2 years ago, just thinking, okay, I can do this, I'm smart enough to do this, but I kept having anxiety attacks. I was sick all the time. I even fell out of the closet when I had all these books in my hand.
Oh.
And my husband was like, that's just not you. You can do it, but are you going to get through it physically? My body was telling me, no, 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 no. So I totally, totally understand that. So, how can we be more aligned? And we're going to get into entrepreneurship, how this connects to reinvention, but how
Mm-hmm.
can we be more aligned to our subconscious, God, everything, just hearing what we're supposed to be doing in life?
Mm-hmm. There's, I have a friend, and she's very young, but she's very wise. And she reminded me of something. She said, the enemy is in chaos. So if there's chaos and you've got all this chatter going on, that's not spirit.
Okay.
And to pause,
Mm, okay.
pause so that you can hear from spirit. Because when you pause, the enemy has nothing to do.
Yeah.
You're not feeding him.
Yeah. You're
You're
not
not feeding the
feeding them.
insecurities. You're
No,
not
right.
feeding the fear. Right.
Right.
When
Right.
you
Right.
stop and you're still, isn't that what the old folks say? Be still
Be still
so
and
you
know.
can hear.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, it sounds, it's very simple. Easy? I don't know. But
Right.
it's very simple.
Right.
Pause.
Right. And I think there is a cadence for everybody to go. Like there's a cadence in where your life is supposed to go. Like keep galloping to this way, but it's not, like you said, chaotic. It's not supposed to be just chaotic and all over the place and running towards the thing that's really not you, but everybody's running toward it. I call it the herd mentality. And if you are following the herd, you're never going to see exactly what you are supposed to be doing, exactly where you are completely aligned. Like, I don't want to be 50% aligned, 25% aligned. I want to be 100% aligned. And when you're in that sweet spot, I think miracles happen. Have you saw that in your own life? Like, have you saw, like, I'm aligned with this thing happen? Okay, now this thing happened. I think that's a sweet alignment.
It is. It's when you're in your flow,
Mm-hmm.
right? and things are just that, just flowing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and it is a nice feeling because you do, I guess it's that moment where you truly are trusting.
Yes. Yes.
And
And
that's what it
believe.
is.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. And it's no rush. It's no anxiousness. It's just the doors just open. You're like, I am in the flow.
Yeah. But we have to surrender to do that. We have to
Yes.
surrender to be in that place and allow God or Holy Spirit to, we have to allow them to guide our actions and guide our thoughts.
Mhm. And how do you get there? Because when I am really, I was telling someone when I was a young woman, very young, and I was working all the time, when I would have any problem, I would immediately leave the situation and just immediately talk to God about it. I was so enamored in God, and it seemed like I had so much peace, even though chaos was around me sometimes. And I was very purposeful and blessed in that. I mean, just things would just happen. But I think it's our connection, how much time we give to our environment and how much time we give to God. So, do
Mhm.
you think there's an alignment there?
I think that um, I don't think God requires what we think God requires of us. And I
Okay.
don't think God sees things the way we see things. We have this idea that God is, we've given God a persona, and God is not a person.
Okay.
That's my opinion. God is not a person. If God is
Mm-hmm.
perfect love is not about vengeance. It's not about punishment.
Yeah.
It's not about um, it's not about the darkness and the shadows that we impose on God. Not if
Mm-hmm.
He's perfect love.
Right.
And if God doesn't make mistakes, then who we are and our behaviors is inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
God just wants us to trust Him, trust in Him,
Mm-hmm.
and to gift Him what we perceive as challenges. Because we see them as challenges, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not.
Right.
If we're spiritual beings,
Yeah.
we have everything we need. We have abundance. We have all that God has to offer us. It's already there. We
It's
already
already
have
there.
it.
Yes.
We don't see it. We don't remember that.
Mm.
And that's why we struggle. That's why we suffer. And God just asks us, gift Him what you perceive as a challenge, because really it doesn't mean anything to Him,
So we
because
surrender
it's
it.
nothing.
Right. We surrender it to Him.
Gift it. Maybe that's the mentality shift,
Okay.
you know?
Shift.
For God,
Gifted.
it's a gift.
Okay.
And when you give someone a gift,
Mm-hmm.
that's a free giving. There's no fear
Yes.
behind that. You're just
Yes.
giving, lovingly giving,
Yes.
right? That's what a
Yes.
gift is.
Yes.
Versus running to God and praying out of fear,
Yeah.
because ego says that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Beg and plead and oh my God, I hope. That's not
Mm-mm.
that's not how God wants us to come,
Right. Now let me ask you this. Do you
in my opinion.
do you believe in development? So if we're not in the place where God needs us to be for the great, surrendering the great struggle to get what He has for us, do you believe that God allows development in our lives and it is disguised as struggle?
I don't think that God disguises anything.
Okay.
I think we're the ones that do the disguising because we've given way too much power to the ego
Okay.
and not enough to our our spiritual beingness,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So when we surrender to God, we're in our spiritual beingness, and we can experience that alignment. When we fall slave to the ego, then we are giving power to the madness and the insanity and the chaos. So we get to choose who we give the power to.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Okay.
that's what it. That's my opinion.
Okay. So, being that we're talking about a mindset for business, so entrepreneurship can have so many ebbs and flows. With my experience with entrepreneurship over the last 3 decades, it has been just, different ebbs and flows. Some things I did not expect, some things surprised me. So, what would be a great lesson or advice that you can prepare someone for the mindset of entrepreneurship?
I think accepting that being an entrepreneur is a spiritual journey. Whether you believe in God or not, it is indifferent. It's a spiritual journey because it's not just about getting clients, but it's about you internally as a person, because you're constantly being put in a position to question whether or not you can do it, whether or not you're supposed to do it, whether or not um, you will be successful, right? And what that looks like. Then you have to define what that means. And so it's definitely a journey, a spiritual journey, in my opinion. And there's a lot of surrendering in that, even though I may be doing something similar to someone else, I can't copy what someone else does because that's not my path.
That's not aligned.
It's not aligned.
It's not aligned.
When you're an entrepreneur, and this is all dependent on whether you want to do what you're purposed to do or you're just doing to be doing.
Right.
So that's another thing.
Right.
You know, some people, they're chasing a dollar, and they'll sell their soul and their children's soul and their grandchildren's soul to get to whatever it is that dollar amount is.
Right.
And it doesn't matter.
Right.
But that's not the mindset I am walking in.
Right.
You know, so I guess it depends on which path you want to take.
Right. I can
Yeah.
remember having a mentor, speaking of this, and copying and becoming someone else. I can remember having a mentor and starting a small business. And I invited my mentor to come in and see the business. And, they were saying, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have that, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't. I did it like this, I did it like that. Well, we're talking about copying in the reverse because I was uncopying. And they told me not to have this big television in the lobby. And so I made the lobby really intimate. I designed it with these plush couches, and I just wanted this little small space where people could come in and just look at TV if they were waiting. And so they told me not to do it. And then I went to visit them probably about a year later, and they had did the same exact setup. You see what I'm saying? So I think it's so important to be aligned in what God is telling you to do, and get rid of what the ego is saying, like, oh, this person did it like that, or that person did it like that. Or, I had another coach to tell me that my creativity was just too much. Well, that's how God built them. That's not how He built me. You see what I'm saying? So I know, I think you have to have a great perspective on who you are before you even go into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So because your business is very, very unique, so you had to really understand who you were to go into this business model.
Yes.
So have you had any ebbs and flows, or has it been very easy transaction to go into this business? about business?
It has not been easy.
Okay.
It has not been easy.
But you feel aligned.
For the most part, I do have moments when I'm fearful
Mm-hmm.
and unsure,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to forgive myself for that because um, that's not my truth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a I am a spiritual being, and God provides me with the tools that I need and the resources that I need to do what I need to do. But that is a daily practice to remember that and to walk in that. That's not easy. That's not
It
easy.
is. It is.
Um, but there has been ebbs and flows, and I've, you know, in seeking mentorship and guidance, you do get those individuals who say, you need to be on this social media platform, you need to do marketing in this, and you have all this information coming at you, and you don't necessarily resonate with it,
Right.
you know? And
Right.
it's like, well, you can't be successful unless you're on TikTok, social, or Instagram or Facebook. You're not going to be successful. And I had to stop because I had so much resistance
Yeah.
to all of those different things because they're not who I am.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, Spirit, if I'm not feeling this, then does that mean I'm not going to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it that that's just not where you want me to be?
Right.
And I just need to step back, show up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As long as I show up for the opportunities,
Right.
then they'll come to me.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I just show up,
Yeah.
and whatever's supposed to come to me will come to me. And
Right.
if it doesn't, then it doesn't. If I'm
Right.
not feeling it,
Right.
then I let it
So
go.
I have a couple different perspectives on this because okay, so when we are changed, so one of my favorite quotes is from Survival of the Fittest, where it says the animal that survives the longest is not necessarily the smartest or the strongest, but it's the one that knows how to adapt to change.
Mm.
So we live in such a world, and I was telling my friend, I have never saw a proliferation of growth in the digital space as I have in the last 10 years. I'm 51, so I was born in 1972, and the computer hit, and then I saw some growth. But in the last 10 years, with all these apps, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere, from Periscope, and I know a lot of times that's not a person's personality, but I can say this: you have to pick a platform to show up. you
Mm-hmm.
know, not necessarily you don't have to do this, but you have to show up to
Mm-hmm.
where people know that they can actually work with you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and pivoting from behind the chair, because my business has been in the beauty salon, and pivoting from behind the chair into the digital age has been ebbs and flows. It's been exciting, but it's been like, do I have to do this? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do this? And I understand completely what you're saying, but I've gathered the data, and what you said was so true. You need to show up for who needs you, and you need to also be clear for any entrepreneurs watching this. You also need to be clear on who are your particular customers. Because everybody doesn't want their hair done the way I do it, or the way I did it. Everybody doesn't want what I have to offer for. So I have to get really clear on who I'm serving and why am I serving that person. So that's really good food for the soul for entrepreneurs. So I have another question. So
Sure.
what are some key indicators that you need help in your business? So we're talking about the mindset for business. And sometimes I think entrepreneurs might believe that they only need help in their business, but as you explained, with so many ups and downs in entrepreneurship, you need help with your mind. So how and a lot of times in our community, mental health might be ostracized, but we have to
Mhm.
demystify it because you're going to need that help along the way to get started, to keep going, to say, and I have another question later, but to say, why did I get into this anyway? You have to get some clarity and some support. So, what are some key indicators that you might need help to keep going the mindset for business?
I think one big key indicator is when you start to feel isolated and so in your thoughts and you feel yourself spiraling. It's important, I've found, um, with organizations, networking organizations like CP Girl Boss, um, being around individuals who may be going through the same things or have gone through the same things that you can connect with. Not necessarily to network with, but to connect with. So
Yeah.
you can have conversations and you know that you are talking to someone who's been there, or just can just sit with you and have coffee and talk you from the ledge,
Right.
when you
Right.
get to that point where like, I don't know if I can do this, I want to just quit. You need someone to sit there and say, you can do this.
Right.
We got you,
Right.
we're
Right.
there for you. So not being isolated as an entrepreneur, connect with your tribe
Yes.
so that you have someone or some individuals that you can connect with
Right.
when you're in that place to feed you enough so that you can keep going.
Yeah. That is so important because you have to have like-minded individuals. And I was listening to someone today, and they said, "Do not let anyone coach you, or do not." And I've always known this. If you haven't gone through this, you're telling me, oh, I can help you, I can help you, but have you personally gone through this?
Mhm.
It might not be the same thing, but it could be, a similar thing that we went through, a relationship issue or a business issue. It might be a totally different business, but this person understands exactly where you are. So you need to be around like minded individuals if you can't go to counseling, if this thing is really, really heavy for you to keep going and keep um, processing this in your mind while you're on this path, but you don't see any results.
Mhm.
So I totally understand that. So, um, an interesting fact about me, when I first started out, I had no customers. And I can remember back in the day, we didn't have Facebook, social media. So I would go grab a piece of paper and I would write a special on there, and then I'll go photocopy. I think the photocopies were like 5 or 10 cents. And
Yep.
we would go copy like 100 of them with the little money we did have, and just go put all these copies on people's cars. And that's how we got customers, but we had to keep each other encouraged when, all of us were just struggling. So that is such good food for our soul. Okay, so the next thing I want to ask you is, what how would you define, how would you identify a couple of limiting beliefs that all entrepreneurs might have?
Um, I think believing that you have to be an expert.
Okay.
We don't have to be experts.
Okay.
People don't care about how much you know initially. They got to be able to relate to you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They got to have some sort of connection to you. There's that element of humanity there before they're ready to talk about your expertise.
Right.
you know. Um, so I think letting go of the fact that you have to be an expert, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Right.
Um, let's see, another limiting belief. Um, trusting, don't allow fear to keep you from where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs wrapped up in that. Um, that you're worthless,
Mm-hmm.
that you're not smart enough, that you don't look the part. Don't get caught up in what other people have told you you are or aren't,
Mm-hmm.
because those things come when you're stepping out on your own.
They do.
Ego brings all of that back, all that is recall
Mm-hmm.
when you
Mm-hmm.
step out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And letting go of all of that, forgiving yourself for even believing in that stuff.
Right. Right.
Don't
Self
don't don't
compassion.
buy in that.
Self compassion is probably one of the greatest things that I have learned, and
Mm.
I learned it on the other side of 50. I just allowed myself to have self compassion and then celebrate the tiny wins that I have. Just the tiny wins. I'm always saying get back up again and celebrate wins, because you have to celebrate those small things that you overcame. Sometimes in your mindset.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
okay, so another limiting belief.
Let's see. Um, let's see. I feel like you got one that you're waiting for me to say. I feel like you already know what it is.
Well, I'll say what we talked about earlier is fear.
Mm.
Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Mm.
And I think that fear, I located some fear in me because I went through a lot of childhood trauma. So you have to realize where you are, like self awareness. You have
Mm.
to always check in to where am I? I'm no longer back there in that traumatic event. You might have had a messy job experience and you're at a new location, but you're letting that mindset come into this new experience. So
Mm.
I think letting go of fear and having self awareness is
Mm.
critical. It is critical because I can locate within talking to someone within probably 30 minutes
Mm-hmm.
what is leading them. Where are they? And I used to do this exercise with my mom before she passed, and I do this exercise with my dad because I studied mindfulness. And he'll start talking about something that affected him. It might have been a week, it might have been, years, and I'll say, Dad, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I keep reminding him, and he'll say, okay, I understand. You see, self awareness is so powerful in the moment of choice.
Mm.
So I think that is so good for entrepreneurs, especially starting off, because you're going to have so many bumps, and fear and self awareness is something that I would really pay attention to with limited beliefs.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So the next question I want to ask you, so how do you tell in your mindset, being a transpersonal, um, creative, I won't say coach, I'll say creative, guider, how do you tell
Companion. Crossroad companion.
crossroad companion, how would you tell entrepreneurs to look inside their mindset, whether it's time to just give up on this path, or is that your mindset?
I never tell them
Okay.
because that's not for me to tell.
Okay.
Um, we know where we're supposed to be. We know how this is supposed to turn out. We may not remember,
Right.
but we know. That's all. Remember, that's the subconscious material, right?
Right.
All of
Right.
our wisdom, all of our knowledge is there. It's,
Right.
I just help them remember.
You help them to remember
I
who they
help them
are
remember.
and the path that they're going.
That unfolds. Yeah.
It
But
unfolds.
remembering who you are, if you can remember who you are, then you can get to where you're going.
Yes, that is so true. Even at the times where everything around you looks like, oh Lord, is this really gonna happen? Did this really happen? You know, like today I needed a roofer and a plumber. I'm like, I really need both of these people right now. This is really happening. You know, and so you have to tell yourself to just keep the faith, keep going, and you have to have that for yourself, not just depending on, oh, I got to run to my group, oh, I got to run to this person. Run. You really have to carry that on the inside, I think, too.
Yeah. And in your relationship with your source,
Yes.
most importantly.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, this is
What
great.
are a couple things that you will tell entrepreneurs to have the mindset for business before you leave?
Let's see, what would I tell myself? Um, I think it is very important, like you said, um, that compassion and grace for yourself. Um, there are no failures.
Yeah.
There are no failures. When you feel like you take one step forward and then something knocks you two steps back, those two steps, they weren't backwards.
Right.
They weren't
Yeah.
backwards. They may be on another path that's parallel
Mhm.
to the path where you were going
Mhm.
on initially,
Mhm.
but you didn't go backwards.
You didn't go backwards. No.
You did not go backwards.
Now you mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to tap on this, but maybe in another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Surrender. There is so much to be said about surrender.
Yeah.
I have studied surrender, and surrender guides us to our optimum level. It really does, but we fight it with the ego. And surrender, just keep surrendering. I read this book about surrender, and this guy, he just kept surrendering, kept surrendering, kept surrendering, and it led him to his highest self.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he didn't understand the path, he just simply surrendered to the path, and it took him from being obscure, which he loved. He didn't like to be out in the open, and it took him from a level of who he really was to who he could really be.
Mm.
It just blowed me away how surrender works, and surrender is something that we need to add to our backpack in entrepreneurship, I think.
And I think you hit it on the nose. We are so busy trying to know and trying to understand,
Mm-hmm.
and our understanding is not necessarily required.
Right.
We don't necessarily need to understand or know the whys.
Right.
And ego says we do, but we don't.
Right.
And that's where we have to let go that control, and we can surrender when we can be comfortable with, it's okay if I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if I don't know the why,
It's okay.
because that it will eventually come.
Yes. Yes. So I want to ask you. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And just keep letting go and surrendering. That is the work I think we should do.
Yeah.
So what brings you joy?
Oh, my work
Your work.
and my nephews.
Oh, your nephews. Okay. How old are they?
Um, I have one that's 10.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Christian. I call him Doodlebug. I have one that's going to be 9 in December.
Okay.
His name is Nathan, and I have my little one, Jacob, who's an old soul. He's been here many times, and he just turned 6.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so what are you working on in this season of your life?
What am I working on? Um, I don't know that I'm working on anything specific. I just am. I'm just seeing where my talents and gifts are supposed to be applied.
Okay.
Is where I am. I don't know if that's working with individuals, working with groups, whatever that looks like, just seeing where I'm supposed to be, where my talents and gifts are supposed to be applied right now.
Hmm. I think
That's
that's
where
a
I am.
beautiful place to be. That's a beautiful place to be. And just surrendering to the path that it takes you. I think that's beautiful. And what has been your greatest life lesson?
My greatest life lesson has been forgiveness,
Mm.
forgiving mostly myself.
Yeah.
And I don't mean forgiving myself because I did something wrong or anything like that. It's more forgiving myself for just let's see how I put this. Forgiving myself for not allowing God to be who God wants to be and needs to be for me. And so that means just not buying into those limiting beliefs, forgiving myself for buying into those limiting beliefs. That's a daily thing. That's every day catching those thoughts and saying, I forgive myself for that.
Right.
I forgive myself for that thought about me not being good enough because that's meaningless.
It's meaningless.
It's meaningless. It's not true.
It's
It's
not
not
true.
reality.
It's not reality. And I don't care who you're looking at, successful, unsuccessful, a mentor, someone that you admire. I think we all have had limiting beliefs. I can remember pivoting and trying to open up my first brick and mortar business. And I had the money to do it, I had the talent to do it, I had the plan to do it, and God just opened the doors. It was just miraculous what happened. And the guy was just so just engaging and so nice, in the new space. And I was trying to back out. I mean, it was my husband, my sister, and my best friend. And I would go by there and I would show them, I would open the door, look at it. And then I would get so scared. And I would go back to the place that I was at that I knew I had to grow from. And then a couple of months later, I would get strong again because it was under construction. I was getting things in there. I would get so scared and I would stop myself. And an incident happened where I got pregnant with my baby. My She's almost 20 now. And my husband just said, I don't care if you stay home. I don't care if you take a year to do it, but you're not going back. You're moving forward.
Hmm.
So his mind was stronger, much stronger than mine. And I think this is so important to talk about in entrepreneurship. We have to forgive ourselves for those times that we are struggling against God's will for our lives. That is so important
Hmm.
that you talked about that. That is that right there. I would not be And I'm not saying I'm where I want to be right now, but I
Right.
wouldn't be as far as I've come, you know, with that mindset and just the struggle. Just the struggle of getting me to go to the next level. It took so many people. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people look at individuals and say, "Oh wow, she's strong. She has it all figured out. He's this, he's that." But sometimes it has taken a miracle to get us. It has taken a miracle to get us to this place. Like I can't. Can I do this? Are you sure I can do it? And you're
Yeah.
asking people that's way less qualified in that area than you, and they're like, "Yes, you can do it. Go, 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 go."
That is so true.
It's so true. And they don't have the experience you do. They obviously don't have the education in that area. And you're just sitting here doubting yourself, and you're like, I know I talked about it. I know I kept talking about it, but it's here. And then they're just like, go, just go. Have you had that experience?
A little bit. A little
That has
bit.
been my experience. It has been my experience, and it's like, Lord, when I look at my mindset,
Mhm.
how much I wanted and those limiting beliefs. That's what I wanted. I wanted to stay there. It was comfortable. It was a risk. I knew what was going to happen every day. Here, I didn't know what was going to happen over there, but that's faith. That's faith
Mhm.
over there.
Mhm.
This is familiarity over here.
Right.
So that has been one of my greatest life lessons as well. So how does everyone get in touch with you? So this is going to be on my other podcast and also on my business page. So how does everyone get in touch with you?
So I do have a website. It is thecrossroadcompanion.com. And I am on Instagram as the Crossroad Companion.
Okay. And what services do you offer? Can you offer entrepreneurs
Well, I offer
or anyone?
anyone. I offer companionship. I offer insights. I offer the opportunity
The opportunity.
for you to gain clarity and insight, because it's all in you
It's all
where you need to go and what you want to do. That's all. And I just kind of help you find it,
yeah.
find your nuggets.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Dr. Kaye, for being
Thank you for
on
having
today.
me.
It has been amazing, and I know everyone is going to get so much value when they watch the replay. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining me. Remember, you can always celebrate wins and get back up again around here. I will see you all in the very next episode.